welcome to this edition of News for the Hearing Impaired. I'm Rukma and with me is Meera. Let's begin with the headlines. Centre forms 10 empowered groups and a strategic task force, including senior civil servants to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak and its aftermath. 6-member strategic task force to deal exclusively with issues related to the lockdown. Home Ministry acts staff against 4 top officials of Delhi government for showing laxity in effective implementation of lockdown. Suspends 2, including Additional Chief Secretary Transport and Principal Secretary Finance. Show cause notices to 2 others. Centre asks state governments to seal borders effectively and place under quarantine all those crossing the borders. Centre also directs to allow free movement of trucks with goods, asks states to ensure facilitation of labourers, including payment of wages. Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the helm of India's fight against COVID-19. PM Modi continues to interact with over 200 stakeholders and people on a daily basis, also gets first-hand feedback from various quarters. Total number of active corona-positive cases in the country stand at 901, while 27 people have lost their lives and 95 discharged after getting well. Maharashtra and Kerala have maximum number of active cases. Global death toll due to COVID-19 goes past 30,000, while corona-positive cases touch 7 lakh. Italy, Spain, US and France most affected. All countries take strict steps to deal with COVID-19. And in our top story, the government has set up 10 empowered groups and a strategic task force, including senior civil servants to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak and its aftermath. These groups have been set up under the Disaster Management Act. The groups have been empowered to formulate plans and to take all necessary steps for their time-bound implementation. The Department of Expenditure has issued special instructions to enable expeditious decision-making in procurement matters. Each group has senior representatives from PMO and Cabinet Secretariat to ensure seamless coordination. Of these 11 empowered groups, 9 are headed by secretary-level officers, 1 by member Niti Aayog and 1 by CEO Niti Aayog. In case of any need for guidance, these groups may seek guidance from Union Cabinet Secretary. The Ministry of Home Affairs on Sunday night suspended 2 top officials and issued a show cause notice to 2 others on charges of failing to ensure COVID-19 lockdown in the national capital effectively. The ministry in a statement said these officers have failed to ensure public health and safety during the lockdown restrictions to combat COVID-19. Additional Chief Secretary Transport Renu Sharma and Principal Secretary Finance Rajiv Verma were suspended with immediate effect due to serious lapse in their duties to enforce the lockdown in the capital. While Additional Chief Secretary Home and Land Buildings and the Sub-Divisional Magistrate Seelampur have been issued show cause notice. The centre has directed states to enforce strict implementation of the lockdown. In an official directive to states, the centre has asked states to enforce lockdown strictly. The Cabinet Secretary and MHA are in constant touch with state chief secretaries and DGPs. Video conferences were held by the Cabinet Secretary and Home Secretary with chief secretaries and DGPs. By and large, there has been effective implementation of guidelines across all states and union territories. Essential supplies have also been maintained. The situation is being monitored round the clock and necessary measures are being taken as required. However, there has been movement of migrant workers in some parts of the country. Directions were issued that district and state borders should be effectively sealed. States directed to ensure there is no movement of people across cities or on highways. Only movement of goods should be allowed. DMs and SPs should be made personally responsible for implementation of these directions, which have been issued under the DM Act. Adequate arrangements for food and shelter of poor and needy, including migrant laborers, be made at the place of their work. Centre had issued orders for use of SDRF funds for this purpose. Sufficient funds are available with states in this head. States have been also told to ensure timely payment of wages to laborers at their place of work during the period of lockdown without any cut. House rent should not be demanded from laborers for this period. Action should be taken against those who are asking laborers or students to vacate premises. Those who have violated lockdown and travelled during the period of lockdown will be subject to minimum 14 days quarantine in government quarantine facilities. Detailed instructions on monitoring of such persons during quarantine have been issued to states. It was impressed upon all states that 3 weeks of strict enforcement is essential to contain spread of the virus. This is in the interest of everyone.
जो स्ट्रैंडेड लेबर है उसके लिए फूड और शेल्टर का प्रावधान हो। स्टेट डिजास्टर रिस्पॉन्स फंड के अंतर्गत स्टेट्स और यूटीज को इसके लिए सफिशिएंट फंड मिला हुआ है। जो लेबर चल चुकी है उसको उसके गंतव्य स्थान पर स्टैंडर्ड हेल्थ प्रोटोकॉल के अनुसार मिनिमम 14 दिन के लिए क्वारंटाइन किया जाए। जितने एम्प्लॉयर्स हैं उनको निर्देश दिया जाए और ये लागू किया जाए कि क्लोज डाउन पीरियड के लिए वर्कर्स को उनके वर्क प्लेसेस पर ड्यू डेट पर बिना डिडक्शन के पूरी वेजेस दें। जो वर्कर्स रेंटेड अकोमोडेशन में रह रहे हैं उनके लैंडलॉर्ड ना उनसे 1 महीने का रेंट मांगेंगे और ना उनसे खाली कराएंगे। डीएम्स और एसपीज को ये आदेश इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए पर्सनली रिस्पॉन्सिबल ठहराया जाएगा।
In a media briefing on current novel coronavirus situation in the country, Joint Secretary Health Love Agarwal said that the Union Health Secretary has asked all states to ensure dedicated hospital and beds for treating coronavirus patients.
सेक्रेटरी हेल्थ ने स्टेट्स के सभी सेक्रेटरी हेल्थ से बात करते हुए उनसे ये भी कहा है कि जब हम कोविड-19 के लिए बेड्स की संख्या बढ़ा रहे हैं, आइसोलेशन बेड्स को ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहे हैं, तो हमें ये इंश्योर करना होगा कि जो एग्जिस्टिंग हॉस्पिटल हैं कोविड-19 के पेशेंट्स के लिए वो डेडिकेटेड ब्लॉक्स हों या स्पेसिफिक हॉस्पिटल ऑर्गेनाइज किए जाएं ताकि वहां उन पेशेंट्स का दूसरे पेशेंट से इंटरमिंगलिंग होते हुए इन्फेक्शन के चांसेस ना हों। इसी के तहत ऑलरेडी कई स्टेट्स और सेंट्रल मिनिस्ट्रीज के जो हॉस्पिटल्स हैं वहां पर ऑलरेडी उन्होंने एग्जिस्टिंग पेशेंट्स को ईयर मार्क डेडिकेटेड हॉस्पिटल से दूसरे हॉस्पिटल में शिफ्ट भी करने का कार्य शुरू कर दिया है।
The Union Home Ministry, in a fresh directive, has said that states and Union Territory administration will ensure adequate arrangements of temporary shelters and provision of food for the poor and the needy, including migrant laborers stranded due to lockdown measures. Migrants have to be kept in the nearest shelter. All employers to make wage payment of workers at workplace on due date without deduction for period of lockdown. To ensure uninterrupted and seamless supply chain of goods and essential commodities in the wake of COVID-19, Indian Railways has offered its unhindered services of parcel trains for nationwide transportation of essential commodities and other goods required to meet the needs of citizens of the nation. Indian Railways has made railway parcel vans available for quick mass transportation across the nation to transport essential items like medical supplies, medical equipment, food, etc. The decision to run special parcel trains will help in movement of small quantities as well of essential items like dairy products, medical equipment and medicines, groceries, edible oil and other necessary items. Indian Railways is already transporting essential commodities to different parts of the country through freight trains. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is continuing his interaction with various stakeholders in India's fight against COVID-19. The PM interacted with over 200 people on a daily basis so far, which includes phone calls to various state governors, chief ministers and health ministers to get a first-hand feedback on India's fight against the COVID-19 menace. The Prime Minister also telephonically reached out to various doctors, nurses, health workers and sanitation staff from various corners of the country in order to encourage them and pay gratitude to their yeoman service to the nation and society. PM Modi interacted with people from various walks of life through video conferencing in an effort to control the spread of the virus. He held discussions through video conferencing with the heads of various electronic media groups as well and with the heads of various print media groups on the 24th of March. In both the cases, he appealed that media should counter pessimism and panic through positive communication. On the 27th of March, PM Modi held a video conference with various radio jockeys and announcers of All India Radio and said there is a need to constantly celebrate the contribution of local heroes at the national level and boost their morale. He also reached out to some of those who are affected with the virus and to those who have recovered from its effects in order to keep an update on their progress. The Prime Minister, in a special video interaction on 25th March with his constituents in Varanasi, appealed for resolve, restraint and sensitivity and exhorted people to adapt to best practices in fighting the virus. The nationwide tally of confirmed coronavirus cases has crossed the 1,000 mark. The total number of active cases in the country stands at 901, while 27 people have lost their lives. 95 people have been discharged after getting well. Maharashtra and Kerala have the maximum number of active COVID-19 cases. With the announcement of the suspension of all commercial passenger flights till the 14th of April, it may appear that airports across the country are non-functional, but that is not the case. Indian airports are functional and are being kept operational by a dedicated team of staff working 24/7 for all cargo and evacuation flights that have been pressed into service. A constant sanitization of the airports is being carried out as flights continue to land and take off. It is especially true of Delhi's international airport, from where much of rescue missions and cargo movement is being carried out. Over 100 of the operations and cleaning staff are staying inside the airport premises and, in a way, stand quarantined. In Himachal Pradesh's Kinnaur, the 19th Battalion of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, or ITBP, distributed essential ration items among migrant laborers and their families amid the lockdown. Images showed people queuing up to receive their share of ration. According to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Himachal Pradesh has reported 3 positive cases of COVID-19, including 1 death. Help is pouring in from various quarters towards the Prime Minister's appeal to donate in the PM Cares Fund. President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu and Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla will give 1 month's salary to the PM Relief Fund. Union ministers, parliamentarians, several public bodies, industry as well as entertainment world have also come forward with donations for PM Care Fund to fight coronavirus. US President Donald Trump has said the peak death rate in the United States from the pandemic was likely to hit in 2 weeks and extended social distancing guidelines until April 30th. President Trump said that he was extending the government's social distancing guidelines until April 30th to slow the spread of the virus, which has infected nearly 140,000 in the U.S. and left more than 2,400 dead. Meanwhile, the United States recorded 518 new coronavirus-linked deaths in the span of 24 hours, according to data published on Sunday by the Johns Hopkins University. The record toll, higher than the previous day's increase of 453, brings the country's total number of deaths since the start of the pandemic to 2,409. New York State, which has become the epicenter of the pandemic in the U.S., is by far the hardest hit region, with nearly 60,000 cases and 965 deaths, according to a statement released by New York State Governor. Spain entered its third week under near total lockdown on Sunday as the government approved a strengthening of measures to curb the spread of coronavirus. The death toll rose by 838 cases overnight to 6,528, making it second in the world after Italy. Spain also saw infections rise to 78,797. from 72,248 the day before. Amid this, Spain received a shipment of health supplies from the Czech Republic on Sunday amid the outbreak. 10,000 items of protection equipment arrived for health workers after the government requested medical aid from NATO allies. In Colombia, drones with loudspeakers are being used by the police to urge people to stay indoors to prevent spread of coronavirus. The National Police urge people to remain indoors in their own creative ways. In the northern Colombian city of Barranquilla, police used drones with loudspeakers to warn people to stay home. In Medellin, police drove a funeral car carrying a coffin and wreaths while issuing alert messages for citizens to stay in their homes during the state of emergency. Police also sang to provide some entertainment to people forced to stay inside during the lockdown period. Colombia on March 25th began a nationwide lockdown until April 13th. Colombia has so far reported 702 cases of the disease, including 3 deaths. Canadian Prime Minister has said that funding for youth, seniors and victims of abuse affected by coronavirus will soon be increased. Trudeau said Ottawa would spend more than $145 million on additional help for vulnerable people such as the homeless, women and children fleeing violence, and counseling services for the young. Trudeau announced $5.3 million would go to Kids Helpline and encourage children to contact counselors and volunteers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On Sunday, Canadian authorities said the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in Canada had increased by 211 to 5,866, and deaths have gone up from 61 to 63. The Kids Helpline announced. And Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro on Sunday flouted his government's social distancing guidelines against the spread of coronavirus by mixing with supporters on the streets of Brasilia and urging them to keep the economy going. Bolsonaro said he has maintained that Brazilians need to continue working to earn their incomes while taking precautions not to become infected with the virus. He has also lashed out at state and municipal officials who, in steps aimed at saving lives, implemented tough lockdowns, closed non-essential businesses, and banned public meetings, even in churches. Despite confirmed cases of COVID-19 tripling in 7 days to 3,904 by Saturday, with 114 deaths so far. The elderly are at a higher risk of COVID-19 infection due to decreased immunity and body reserves, as well as multiple associated comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, chronic kidney disease, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. However, COVID-19 transmission among the elderly can be reduced by taking the following measures. Do's include stay at home, avoid meeting visitors at home, wash your hands and face at regular intervals with soap and water. Sneeze and cough either into your elbow or into tissue paper or handkerchief. Ensure proper nutrition through home-cooked fresh hot meals. Hydrate frequently. Exercise and meditate. Take your daily prescribed medicines regularly. Postpone your elective surgeries, if any, like cataract surgery. Don'ts include do not cough or sneeze into your bare hands or without covering your face. Don't go near your contacts if you are suffering from fever and cough. Don't touch your eyes, face, nose and tongue. Don't go near affected or sick people. Don't self-medicate. Don't shake hands or hug your friends and near ones. Don't go out unless it is absolutely essential. Bollywood celebrity Anil Kapoor, in a public service message, has appealed to people to stay at home and stay safe to safeguard themselves from coronavirus.
नमस्कार। जैसे कि आप सब जानते हैं कि हम कोरोना वायरस कोविड-19 नामक महामारी के बीच में हैं और अगर हमें अपने आप को और अपनों को सुरक्षित रखना है तो हमें एक साथ मिलकर कुछ करना होगा। तो केवल अपनी ही नहीं, अपने आसपास के लोगों की सुरक्षा के लिए हमें इन कुछ चीज़ों का पालन करना होगा। हमारा एक छोटा कदम अनगिनत जिंदगियों को बचा सकता है। आप अपने घर में रहिए और एक साथ कहीं पर जमा मत हुइए। सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग यानी दूसरों से मेल मिलाप बंद कर दीजिए। अगर किसी कारण बाहर जाना पड़े तो एक दूसरे से कम से कम 6 फीट की दूरी रखिए। अपने हाथों को साबुन और पानी से कम 20 सेकंड्स तक धोइए, स्पेशली बाहर से आने के बाद और खांसने और छींकने के बाद। अपनी आंखों, नाक और मुंह को बिना धोए हुए हाथों से छूने से बचें। जो लोग बीमार हैं उनके नजदीक ना जाएं और उनसे दूरी बनाए रखें। अगर आप बीमार हैं तो घर पर ही अपने आप को क्वारंटीन करके रखें और सिर्फ मेडिकल हेल्प के लिए बाहर जाएं। खांसते या छींकने वक्त अपने मुंह को रुमाल से, टिश्यू पेपर से ढक लें और उपयोग किए हुए टिश्यू को कचरे में फेंक दें। उसे फिर दोबारा रीयूज ना करें। अगर टिश्यूज ना हो तो अपने आस्तीन या कोहनी में अपना मुंह ढक लें, अपने हाथों से। रोज काम में आने वाली चीज़ों को साफ रखें, जिसमें टेबल, डोर नॉब्स, लाइट स्विचेस, हैंडल, डेस्क, कंप्यूटर्स, फोन्स, कीबोर्ड, सिंक्स, फॉसेट्स और काउंटर टॉप्स को साफ रखें। ये सब चीज़ें उसमें शामिल हैं। प्लीज़ ध्यान दें कि कोरोना वायरस कोविड-19 के सिम्टम्स में बुखार, सांस की तकलीफ और खांसी शामिल हैं। इसके सिम्टम्स एक्सपोजर 2 या 14 दिनों के बाद दिखाई देते हैं। यदि आपको लगता है कि आप इस महामारी से एक्सपोज हुए हैं और इसके सिम्टम्स में आपका कुछ विकास हुआ है या आपको ऐसा लगता है कि आपको कहीं ना कहीं आपको इस सिम्टम्स दिखाई दे रहे हैं, तो प्लीज़ मेडिकल सलाह के लिए अपने डॉक्टर से बात करें। सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात यह है कि आप सब घर पर रहें, सुरक्षित रहें और इस महामारी के सबसे सूचित रहें। जय हिंद।
And here's a look at the headlines once again. Centre forms 10 empowered groups and a strategic task force, including senior civil servants, to deal with the COVID-19 outbreak and its aftermath. 6-member strategic task force to deal exclusively with issues related to the lockdown. Home Ministry acts staff against 4 top officials of Delhi government for showing laxity in effective implementation of the lockdown. Suspends 2, including Additional Chief Secretary Transport and Principal Secretary Finance. Show cause notices to 2 others. Centre asks state governments to seal borders effectively and place under quarantine all those crossing the borders. Centre also directs to allow free movement of trucks with goods, asks states to ensure facilitation of labourers, including payment of wages. Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the helm of India's fight against COVID-19. PM Modi continues to interact with over 200 stakeholders and people on a daily basis. Also gets first-hand feedback from various quarters. Total number of active corona-positive cases in the country stand at 901. 27 lose their lives, 95 discharged after recovery. Maharashtra and Kerala have maximum number of active cases. Global death toll due to COVID-19 goes past 30,000 while corona-positive cases touch 7 lakh. Italy, Spain, the United States and France most affected. All countries take strict steps to deal with the outbreak. That's all in this edition of News for the Hearing Impaired. Namaskar.